fun show for you today. We're going to be going through the Saturn return. So we're going to go through all these returns that you experience in adulthood. Thank you to everyone who is watching and liking and subscribing and commenting and enjoying this journey with us, because we're having a lot of fun. So thanks for being here. Here we have Saturn. So planetary themes for Saturn are discipline. Saturn can act as the archetype of the judge, and it's about restraint. This is an ancient yin force. Ra often referred to Saturn as grandma. So Saturn is where you must deal with the consequences of your action, and places in life you'll pay for incorrectness and not following your own laws or morals. Saturn is a profound signpost to see your progress in process. It's the expectant task manager without praise. And if Saturn is leaving you alone, that means you're living correctly. Saturn punishes you for breaking your own rules and values.
And when you look at the gate that your Saturn is in, you'll see when we look backwards over your life that that is essentially where you are punished. You know, and punish is a relative term. It's just where you get let down to where your expectations were. That's part of what a punishing is. It's a lot of things of that nature. So don't look at that punishing like there's this direct correlation to I shall punish you specifically. It's just a theme, and you'll see it playing over and over again in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I went through my Saturn return a few years ago, and it kind of ends up feeling like if you're playing like bumper bowling, except the bumpers are like knocking into you to like push you into place to kind of realign you with your path. So Saturn really knocked the
That's the
knocked the
kind
heck out of
version of
me.
it. And that's the mundane version of that. And it's the kind version of that. And that's what normally happens. But do look out in your life for certain big things that are let's just say the bumpers stuck out a couple feet farther than they normally do. And you got hip checked in a hockey game, you know, so it's a lot that way sometimes.
Yeah, it can be a little chaotic.
Hmm.
Oftentimes with people's Saturn returns, it could be personal stuff happens. I went through a big health crisis. My boyfriend, when he was in his Saturn return, his parents got divorced, or maybe a relationship breakup on your own, or somebody loses a job, or some crazy kind of stuff can happen at this time.
I went through an absolute crazy time during my Saturn return, but it was just, I flowered so much. And I remember my Saturn return had gone by, and I suddenly had this incredible clarity, like shortly after it's going by. And by the way, the planet punishes you throughout the life as it relates to keeping track of you not messing with it. But at your Saturn return itself can be punishing. You know, regardless of what gate Saturn's in, the whole process of your Saturn return can feel a little bit punishing, or it can feel like you're flowering. It depends.
Yeah, I feel like Saturn is kind of like this aligning agent. And even if you kind of visualize the orbit, Saturn is kind of like the last of like these personal-ish ones. Like once you get to Uranus, Neptune, and like Pluto, there's like these far away generational ones. But Saturn is also the only one you could see without a telescope that's the farthest. So I feel like Saturn kind of has this corralling, aligning influence to it. And it's kind of like the teacher. Like Saturn return is kind of the
Very
teacher that comes.
teacher. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like Saturn is the teacher that comes in around like midterms and is like, have you been following your syllabus? And
Yep.
like kind of you get a little scolding if you haven't been following the rubric.
Yeah. And a foreshadowing, you're going to fail if you don't. So look at your Saturn gate, especially in your personality side.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
specifically on your personality side.
so Saturn's orbit is 29.5 years. And so the return that we're referring to is it's returning back to its location at your birth. So it's going 360 degrees all around that mandala wheel. And this happens approximately ages 30, 60, and 90. And so the Saturn return is your cosmic rite of passage. And it's where life hands you a mirror to reflect on who you are and who you're meant to become.
Yeah, this mirror is really important. And if we can catch the people as they're entering their Saturn return and read for them, they can have a decent foreshadow. If someone's deeply in their experiment already and they're following their strategy and authority, my Saturn return was like 88% a joy mixed with tons of chaos. So I couldn't tell at the time. You know, if you put a 12% chaos into the system, you got chaos in your system. But looking back more, as I know more about myself and what was going on back then, most of it was me feeling empowered to now move up the next rung. And shortly thereafter, I was married. My kids came to live with me, which is what I wanted. I had a dream job. It was incredible. It just landed in my lap, all of it right around this time.
That's really lovely. My Saturn was definitely much more of a punch in the face, or a couple of them. So I'm glad yours worked out so nicely. But I think we both ended up in the like correct track and path that we're supposed to be on.
Yeah, you did. Yep.
So the experience of the Saturn return, because you're going to go through 3 different Saturn returns if you live long enough, probably at least 2, maybe 3 if you're lucky. So your first Saturn return is between ages about 28 and 30. And this is the shift from exploratory youth to purposeful adulthood. And this you can feel a pressure, an anxiety, and a need to grow up. So in this time, people might experience career shifts, relationship changes, or existential questioning. Then moving into the second one, which happens around ages 58 through 60. This is the shift from active adulthood to reflective elderhood, and where you're going to be integrating lessons from your first return and refining your purpose and starting to share your mastery as a guide or a mentor. And then finally, the third Saturn return happens between ages 87 and 90. And this is the shift from elderhood to a transcendent phase of legacy. And it invites profound reflection, spiritual completion, and a release of earthly attachments to fulfill your soul's purpose. And remember, Saturn doesn't punish, it polishes your potential.
God, this is just so funny. It's a roadmap to my life. It just so is. I haven't looked at this stuff in quite a long time, so I get to relive it again, basically, Moni. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And the thing about the career shifts, it's this exploratory youth into purposeful adulthood, wicked important, and the pressure was incredible. That was part of the 12% I mentioned a moment ago, was the pressure, open root center. And then this is funny, the shift into adulthood, it also measures the shift at this particular Saturn return as to when you shift and move from that purpose that's in your personality motivation, leader, follower. So I start out leader, I turn into a follower. I'm right in that.
Oh.
Well, that happens. It happens organically at Chiron. However, you start to foresee it at Uranus. It happens at Chiron and at full swing by the time you've reached the second Saturn return. And then the third one, I can't wait to see it, this elderhood. Everything from 2 to 3 is this process, this shifting from elderhood, this taking on mentors and this and that. And lo and behold, I'm here. I'm here at the second one. And so I'm already taking on aspects of the third one and this sharing the mastery, the guide, the mentor. And as I move closer and closer to the 87 to 90, I'm far from it now, I'm only 60, but this shift from elderhood to transcendent phase, it's already foreshadowing itself in my life because I have awareness to it. So it's like I already sort of have a roadmap, and this whole shedding of earthly things is wicked important. I'm already doing that. I
Mm-hmm.
quit my job. I did a few things. I just stopped certain other things. And yep.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of like for your first 30 years, you just learn how to manage your body, right? Ideally, you'd be eating your correct, your PHS, your correct human design digestion, and you're eating correctly so your body can develop correctly. Then around 30, you go through that first Saturn return, and it's like, okay, who are you as an adult? You're not a little kid anymore. Like you're an adult, so be an adult. And then your 30s, it's like, oh my God, I'm figuring out who I am, and I feel so good about who I am in my life. And then you go into like 40 where you have your Uranus opposition and your nodes flip around. And then what? Your second
The true
Saturn.
college, the true college.
The
Uranus is where the true college starts.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then what is it? So then your trajectory flipped
Yep.
at your Uranus opposition
Yep.
as well. We'll talk about these things later, but just to kind of go through it and give a little sprinkles. And then you have your second Saturn return around 60. And now it's like, who are you as an older person and sharing what you've developed and you've learned. And then that third Saturn return is like, you're an older person. And now you're going to plan for your legacy and give away your things and that spiritual connection and getting ready to like pass on in that way. So there are these like different little signpost markers of like where you're going in life.
And it does polish your potential. There's just no question. It's polishing your potential at the first one. It totally is at the second one. I can't wait to see what the third one actually is. Maybe I should mark it down this time. I never looked. This is typical second line, right-minded little hermit. I just never look. I only find out later. I was like, oh my God, look at that.
There it was. Wasn't that neat?
There it is, all is. But it doesn't stop me from explaining it to other people. But then when I stop and reflect on myself, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. There it is.
I did that. It was cool.
It's so funny.
Now, here we're going to talk about the sixth line process because this is an important thing to know. And the sixth line process with the relationship with Saturn is a thing. So, this is going to be especially for people who have a sixth line profile, but anywhere in your chart where you have .6, that gate, that energy is going to be going through this process. Where the first 30 years, it's a very subjective experience. And it's kind of this third line phase where it's bumping into stuff and learning what works and what doesn't. Then between ages 30 and 50, it's integrative. You're integrating everything that you've bumped into from the first phase, and you're integrating that, and you're on the roof, aloof and on the roof, as the phrase goes. And then after 50, after the Chiron return, that sixth line is called off the roof. It's like, okay, you've been up there, you've been integrating everything you bumped into, you learned some stuff, now come back down to the world to kind of share it with the right people. And so all 6 lines go through this process, but it's especially relevant for people who have the 6th line in their main profile numbers.
Especially because they're the only ones that have an absolute, they move from trial and error to the role model. They move from the martyr to the role model. But this 6-line process defines the world, defines mankind's world, with all of us in it. So we're all swept up in it. And as we go through this process at 50 plus, we are supposed to come off the roof. And wherever there's 6 lines in your chart, those will come more off the roof and speak more directly. It's the fool that needs to come down from the hill and help build the ark, because the fool on the hill noticed, yeah, rains are coming. They just noticed it because that's what the fool does, right? The intelligence that can't be explained.
The savant type of
The
thing.
savant-y thing, but they come down and integrate. But that 20 years up on the roof from 30 to 50 is so just integrative, and it is a time for, they're also objective up there. They're learning their objectivity. Each phase always is forecasting what happens in the next phase. And HD, human design, is riddled with multi-layering phases, as you would expect in a genetic mixing pool. As we keep pointing out, there's always multi-phases in different directions and so forth. So here we have all of these things. It's just important to notice we need our 6-line role models, obviously, especially since it's relevant to them, wherever it is, unconscious or conscious 6-line. We need them to come off the roof, not kicking and screaming. Sometimes they won't come off the roof. I mean, they can choose to not come off the roof, and it hurts themselves. They don't get to finish their college laureate stuff that they went to college for between 40 and 50.
Yeah.
The extra studies, getting their doctorate degree or whatever. Pick a different example, but so the 6-line phase is in the world for all of us, and it is meant to be this personal, casual, innocent role model. And the role model thing that they end up learning in their objectivity, which is going to be part of this whole process, is the fact that to be themselves is being the role model. So what do? I try and copy that myself without even trying. I just be myself. And the 6-line's good at it, though. They're better at it than the rest of us when they wake up. They're just good at it. They hold to it with a steadfast kind of way, because that 6-line process, when you get down to tone, is an emotional awareness. We become clear. When we move those streams of awareness, which we're not in right now, I'm just saying, it is on the far right side of the body graph. Tones 5 and 6 give us these emotional streams of the tribal and the experiential, and it is a clarity making process. Skipping the individual gets clear in their own way, only ever so.
Here, it's actually a copy of my human design chart, just so we can show you what you're kind of looking at if you're looking at your own chart. So Saturn is the focal point for your lessons, challenges, and growth. So here you can see I circled it in these little purple ovals. That's the little symbol for Saturn. It's kind of like what do we call it? A stuck-up H was the symbol for Saturn.
Yep. Always looked like an H to me.
Yeah, it was like a fancy H. And so here in my chart, on my design side, it's gate 11, line 3. And then on my personality side, it's 10.5.
Well, that would have been a little bit confusing at the time because
Yeah.
without recognizing the harmony, you would have noticed that your capacity to be a heretic is in total truth with the where your 10 is, resonances to each other. Your personality side would have finally here gotten a true glimpse without having to have others tell you about it or having to figure out, I guess that's just my way. Somehow or other, this would have helped you recognize it more. And that might have actually, that would have been clarifying for you because then the same thing with the 11 would have been informing the 25 and the 46 because it's in total resonance to it from your body side. This would have been starting to let you know that you can channel things, that you see extra perception, sensory thing, that you're special beyond what others want of you.
Yes.
Is that true? By
I
the time you were 32, 3, you were recognizing, shoot, I'm special.
I mean, before that, I just didn't know why. I was like, I'm an odd one, but I don't know why. And I'm a little strange one. And then yeah, definitely I was always a super, super sensitive kid, like sensory as well as just seeing things that seemed very obvious to me that other people didn't notice. And then it's like, yeah, the crazy one, because you see things that you shouldn't see.
all
And
your
then
crazy ideas about what you stepped into by the time Saturn came around first would have been pretty clear. Oh, I step into things and then I get ideas. I step into things and then I get ideas.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely. So
love that. Mechanically speaking, you look at both your Saturns. Literally speaking, the date of your Saturn return is as it relates to the personality side. So that gets far more weight. You could just stay there to read what this heretic was doing. What did the heretic do for you? It hopped out of one life and into another, is what it did. The general moved herself out like a good single definition individual only being would do, in a shocking way, I might add, without going into your whole story. I
yeah,
mean, you found a way to step out of one and into the other, and it was a heresy that you didn't even get fully embroiled in. You
yeah.
sort of were wise and practical enough to keep both sides of that.
Yeah, that's fair. As Danny has referenced, you could look up a specific like return chart. So you can look up your specific Saturn return or Uranus return, solar return. You can look up these return charts, which would then bring up the personality side. We're going to do that in another episode just to keep this from getting too convoluted, but
Yeah,
that's
we
a
can't do
thing.
it here. Yeah,
Yeah, bookmark it. We'll get to it later, but just wanted to kind of reference that for you guys.
absolutely. Yep. So it adds a flavor. You look up your chart, you see what's in that personality side, you add that in as a flavor of your life. Do not rely on it as definition and life force in your body graph. That's
Yeah,
because that's
just
not what it is. It's just there to color. It's a peek into the future. Your behavioral future without telling you that you'll actually win the numbers or not. So it's not a peek into the future that you can bet on the next Super Bowl and win. It's not that kind of peek, right? It's the kind of peek into your future that says, these are going to be part of my trajectory. And so I'll always be able to get a little more juice out of myself, recognizing this is part of my trajectory through the nodes, obviously, but it's not a life force. You don't add those gates into your body graph.
yeah, that's a really good point to bring up because that definitely comes up at times of like, oh, like either people are like, well, if I look at my personality, I'm this, and in my design, I'm this, and it's only when the two are together that I am what I am. And then they start wondering if they're some other type or some other definition, or they look
Mm,
at a return chart and like, oh, now I have sacral definition. Does that make me a generator? Like, no. Your definition
right.
is your definition based on your natal chart, based on that birth time chart. That's what you're
God
doing.
made you perfect. You're just right the way you came out.
Exactly. So stick with your like regular definition, your regular strategy and authority. The other things are just bringing flavors. They're bringing a little energy, a vibe of this, an archetype of that that you're going to experience. But your chart is
Yeah,
your chart is your chart.
there's been several different iterations of HD by other people. I remember one as side reel, this thing called side reel.
Sidereal. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't change your type. You just don't change your type. Just get used to that. You add
Yeah.
flavors. So
Yeah. I was like, I got some opinions on sidereal astrology. So I don't mess with that. It said I was like an emotional generator. And you're like, I
I'm
don't.
such a Yankee. I just called it side reel.
But yeah, stick with your regular tropical astrology demarcations of your regular human design chart and you'll be good to go. Don't
Mhm.
complicate it. You don't need to. Human design got enough going on. You don't need to complicate it. So, Saturn return conclusion. Saturn return is your cosmic call to align with your purpose, and it's guided by your natal Saturn's gate and your unique design. By following your strategy and authority, you turn this cycle into a powerful scene in your life's play. It's a moment to step fully into who you're meant to be. What lessons will your Saturn return inspire you to embrace?
Pay attention to these lessons. And if it's confusing, you don't know which lessons, follow your strategy and authority. Never veer from it, ever. Just love that thing, no matter what, because it's always only ever a matter of time when we can look back and you can see, oh my God. And when you look backwards and see, oh my God, that was going on in my life, it helps drive the trajectory forward where you have awareness of how you are and where your behavior brings you on which trajectory. It's just a thing you can start to see as a flavor in your life. Don't let Saturn be something that is so concretized into etched in stone that that's all there is in your life. It's not that at all. It is a flavor that you then turn into something you can spot for as you move into your Uranus opposition. It's an amazing addition to our lives. It makes us smarter too. We are adaptive creatures, Moni.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
We also have a really good question. So this is from Evolve with Greg and Leia. My Saturn
Right. Hey
return.
guys.
Hi. My Saturn return is 64.1 and 64.2. Is it typical to have the same numbers? And yes, definitely, because Saturn takes a long time for it to make its way through a gate, and then it goes retrograde, and then it goes beyond that gate even further, and then it goes back into it. Like, it's dancing around for a long time. So either your Saturn returns are going to be like the same numbers, or they're going to be the numbers that are right next to each other, on either side of
You
the.
become more objective about that which you allow to confuse you. I'm going to assume the 61 is on the personality and the 64-2 is on the design side. I'm going to guess that. I don't know. You can correct us here. But it means naturally your confusion starts to become more objective. And in a studied way on your personality, you start to see that that's true. The act of confusion which drives consciousness is your consciousness literally is going to turn you into somebody who starts to see confusion not as this thing that creates as much mental anxiety but rather guides your intelligence. If you can choose to witness it that way, you'll start to see how that's true, and your Saturn return is here to give you that flavor.
That was really great, Danny.
Yay, thanks for bringing that. Thanks for asking, guys. Again, I know it, but I don't really know what it is I know about you until you ask it. I'm a generator with a right-minded personality. Just how it goes. It's a little bit oracle-y, and I like it that way.
And
It
it's
makes it
super,
honest.
it's fun because like my super strategic mind is like, cool, I will answer exactly this question that is asked. And I answer
Right.
that. And then Danny with your right mind is
If
like
you know,
goes into this
yeah.
whole beautiful flow.
And my eyes, they look around. I
Uh-huh.
try not, I can't even look at, there's a little dot that says where to look straight at the camera. And if I look at it, suddenly I'm mesmerized by the dot. I have to just mosey. I can't look at any one thing for too long.
That's really funny.
Anyway,
Yeah. Concluding thoughts, tying it all together, Saturn return. What do you got?
well, just to put a bow on it, Saturn return is this lovely place in our body graph that allows us to be far more adaptive than we ever realized. That which you were born with is not the end of the story. And what you are in that first 28 to 30 years, don't even get bummed. Even if it feels like it wasn't so great or something like you missed something, you have something. It doesn't, don't you worry about a thing, like the song says, because it's going to change. It's going to change profoundly. And we want you being able to do what the surfer does. No one controls the waves. Even if you control the wave because you're in a wave pool, you're still not controlling the wave. You can only surf it. And that's what Saturn does. It forecasts surfs up. And where is that surf? And it gives us all a good day. So, that we know which direction we're heading. Saturn is a lovely place for you to start to realize I'm not done. I'm just beginning. And that's what Saturn does for us.
That's lovely. Yeah.
Hmm.
And definitely because people can be like, oh no, I'm going into my Saturn return, and they got really like nervous because it is some like crazy stuff that happens. But like Danny said, it's like, you'll be okay, just roll with it. And don't start freaking out that you're like, I'm 28 and I don't know what's going on and I don't have everything together. And like, don't even bother doing that, because you're gonna get shaken up kind of like a snow globe or like an Etch-a-Sketch, and just kind of roll with it and know that it's gonna get kind of crazy most likely. Like some crazy stuff is gonna happen, but just roll with it. You're gonna be okay, and you'll come out on the other side better. And just know that like there's nothing wrong with you because things are kind of crazy in your life at this time. Because I definitely feel like the whole rug was torn out from underneath me and like knocked me on my bottom. And it was a lot of punches, a lot of craziness, learning to roll with it. And then around, it was like literally like age 31 where it kind of felt like, okay, the worst of the earthquakes and the craziness is over, and I can start kind of standing up and like brushing the rubble off of myself. And there were still maybe a couple little aftershocks, but I knew that I was like, I'm on the right path and I was through the worst of it. So it's like, just make it through like your late 20s and 30, 31, and you'll fall
Had you
into yourself in your 30s and it'll be great.
had you known about human design yet at that point?
I knew about human design, not when I first got into it, but into it, because I got into human design in 2019.
And the first year doesn't count technically because we don't know human design in that first year yet. We just know that, oh my God, we're trying to figure it. So we wouldn't really understand Saturn necessarily unless someone really read it to you just right, But it's just important to note that all these returns share the exact same quality. Each return has this as one of its bases. It takes a snapshot, and it's like a sound you heard or a smell you smelled. Put a smell and a sound together, and it's something you'll just never forget, right? You know, smell is one of the things. We can smell things from childhood when we're 50, and suddenly it brings us right back, right? Very powerful memory in there of all of it. And this is that. Picture a sound of a picture that you could smell, and it slapped you really hard because that's at that moment. And it hits you. You can't forget it. And it's not your conscious mind that's remembering that it can't forget it. It's just in there. So that's why that definition of Saturn at that moment on the personality side, just the black gates, that's why it has meaning, because the cosmos threw it to you. It threw you, if you let it, it threw you a softball. If you fight it, it throws you a hard ball. It's the bottom line. So it throws you this thing that you see, smell, hear. It was profound enough inside your genome at the genetic level that it's hard to forget. You rung with a vibration, it's like a great tune. You can't help, you're humming it all day. You just don't know you're humming it, because you heard it and it sticks with you. This sticks with you for the next, 20 years while you go through your Uranus.
Very nice. Thank you to everyone
Thank you,
who's
Moni.
watching and commenting and engaging with us. We really appreciate it.